So I was wondering which type of training and for how long would you recommend for me to strengthen and maintain my postural muscles and mobility?
At a minimum, my recommendation is 2 15-minute movement sessions per day. Once in the morning to get you going, and once in the evening to start to downshift. And anything that you can add on to that is just bonus. That's icing on the cake. But if you can commit to 2 15-minute blocks of intentional movement practice, then it's my experience that that's going to become a habit, and it's going to overflow into the rest of your life. And how you choose to find little pockets of time throughout your day to express movement. Um, and and that's really the thing for me. I'm trying to get people out of this mindset that you need to train for 60 minutes 3 times a week. And not that that's bad, but if life gets busy, and it will, and you aren't able to hit that standard, then from a psychological perspective, then there's the experience of failure. And then and when we fail, we start to get down on ourselves. We go, what's the use? We go into a downward spiral.
Welcome, everybody, to Born Unstoppable. My name is Thiago, and I believe you were uniquely designed to be an unstoppable force for good. Each episode, we will be bringing you incredible guests that have overcome challenges in their life so that you can learn from their experience and implement their strategies to grow in the areas that matter the most: your health, wealth, and relationships. Welcome to episode 12 of Born Unstoppable. In today's episode, I interview Kellen Milad, who is the creator of Movement Parallels Life, where he serves as the coach and content creator on various social media platforms, where he promotes Primal movement as a holistic and sustainable approach to fitness training. His focus is on building strength and mobility in balance for longevity. His mission is to provide educational content and coaching to help debunk misconceptions around aging and to empower people to stay active and fit for a long lifetime. Mindfulness, play, and time in nature are key aspects to preventing overuse injuries and chronic pain. But before diving into the episode, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts. It greatly helps people notice the podcast and lets me know that I'm providing you with valuable content. If something stands out during the podcast, take a screenshot and tag me and Kellen on Instagram so we know what you found helpful. Lastly, as some of you might know, I run a high-performance coaching program where I help students and young professionals gain back 10 or more hours in their week by optimizing their productivity and overcoming procrastination. And I want to honor the listeners of this podcast by creating a massive discount. So if you're interested in learning more about the Unstoppable Performance Coaching Program, DM me on Instagram the words Unstoppable Podcast. I'll know what that means, and we can set up a 15 to 30 minute call to see how me and my team can help you. And if you decide to join, then we'll give you up to a 40% discount. All right, Kellen, welcome to Born Unstoppable. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. And yeah, thank you so much.
Man, it's wonderful to have you here. We were just talking just before we went on air here that it's such a crazy and cool thing that we can go from, like, I went from watching you on YouTube, following you on Instagram, we exchanged a couple texts, to now just virtually sitting in the room, and we can have a longer discussion and really get down to the passion and motivation of what you do.
It's a beautiful thing. And, I'm really excited to see where the conversation takes us, because there's so many different layers to all of this movement, fitness, and health stuff. Yeah, it's really fun to dig into.
Great. So the way I like to start my podcast usually is with a set of rapid fire questions where I ask you some questions quickly and you can respond in a minute or less or a minute and a half. And if something sticks out, I'll write it down. We can circle back around and talk about it. How's that sound?
Great.
All right. So first question, where did you grow up?
Born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I'm just a little bit north of Chicago. And yeah, I've been in the Midwest my whole life, and that's definitely shaped how I it shaped my journey. I really think that we're a product of our environment, and
Yeah,
is I feel very different from my surroundings many times, but I also have a connection to the Midwest and Wisconsin as home. So very there's a definite dynamic there.
that's cool. That's cool. Where do you live now?
I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I uh, spent some time in Madison going to school. I lived in the Chicago area for a while, but I've been back here for 8 or 9 years now.
That's nice. Nice to be kind of home. That's always nice to be where you grew up and you understand the
Hmm.
land. I
Hmm.
haven't been there, but I can imagine how beautiful nature can be over there in the landscape.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's one of your favorite books?
One of my favorite books. Um, wow. Okay, just put me on the hot seat. um, um, One of my favorite books is called "The Exuberant Animal" by Frank Forensich. That was
Okay.
a it was just one of a handful of books that was a turning point for me as I kind of shifted from mainstream fitness to movement. Just
Yeah,
like simple holistic concepts, but really helped me turn that corner and point me in a different direction. So that was the first one to come to my mind.
so exuberant animal. Does it talk about movement or kind of like fitness from a animal perspective?
Yeah, yeah. I believe his background is in anthropology, so really looks at the um, uh, movement through the lens of culture and how movement plays a role in our socialization, how we connect to other people, connect to our community or our tribe,
Yeah,
and that's a huge influence on what I'm doing.
great. Yeah, definitely. I can see that. What's one of your superpowers?
One of my superpowers, um, I'll say listening. Um,
Let's see.
my educational background is in counseling psychology, and even as a kid, I'm an introverted person. I have developed kind of my extroverted mode, but by design, I'm an introvert, and I love to listen and observe. And even as a kid, was always the one in my friend group who was there to listen and help people sort through their stuff. And that kind of stayed with me all the way through college and informed kind of the educational pathways, my learning pathways that I
Hmm,
chose.
great. That's a good skill. That's a good superpower. What's now this one is just for you. I haven't asked anyone else this, and you'll know why. But what's one of your favorite movements? I'm curious to know that, if possible, because I know there's a flow. You kind of just go with it. But is there a specific move that you really like?
Mm. Um, Not even to get too specific with it, but um, I would probably say hanging and swinging from trees or bars or whatever's accessible. It's not Our opportunities to hang and swing are somewhat limited in the modern world, but maybe
Yeah,
that's why it's my favorite. Something I really value is just that I always come back to this idea of when you think about movement and the ways of that you love to move. What movements make you feel free. And for me, I would say hanging and swinging, and maybe just
Mm,
underneath that, I would put running. But yeah, those are the movements that really just put me in this space of feeling very free.
nice. I once heard Ido Portal. I assume you know who he is.
Mhm.
He mentioned how like every airport should have like a hanging bar, like a bar where people could just hang because people sit for so long, they walk for so long. It'd be just be nice that before you get into an airplane, you could just hang for a little bit and make that more of routine, right? Just to kind of stretch out the spine and do something we never do.
Yeah, it would be great if there were more opportunities everywhere for hanging.
Yeah.
I think, I think I was flying through Dallas Fort Worth one time, and they have like a, a like a yoga space, or just like an open space where you can go grab a mat and stretch. And I thought that was the coolest thing. We need more spaces for self care movement, I think, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, totally. And last question, what do you feel is holding people back from finding success in their fitness?
Oh, wow. There's a lot of challenges. Um, I really think that at the root of it all is that we've just made it so complicated. We've
Mm,
put we've confined movement to a million different exercises. And in the fitness industry, there is more bickering and and people like disagreeing than there is, people collaborating and celebrating movement. So there's a lot of divisiveness. There's a lot of just information and conflicting information floating around
yeah.
out there that I think for the average person, it creates a lot of barriers, coupled with the fact that our everyday lives are just kind of restricted. We're restricted from moving too much. Many people have a
Yeah.
desk job, they have this certain attire and the certain setup that doesn't facilitate movement on a day-to-day basis. And then when you get into fitness, there's all these rules and conflicting information that it's hard to be consistent, and it's hard to find some joy in it, some enjoyment, um, to make it a part of your life. So I think those are some of the factors in our current landscape that prevent people from finding success in fitness.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a great in-depth response. I love it. So let's get into uh, the bulk of the podcast
Let's
now.
do it.
Um, Take us back to your childhood and share with us how you got into the fitness space and even more specifically the movement space. I think it's so important to understand someone's upbringing and kind of how they were transformed over time to where they are now.
Okay. So, I grew up as at a very solitary existence growing up. Only child, um, and so this is the 80s, an only child. And when I think of the 80s, I think of like, yeah, you're a kid, you're free, you've got a gang of
Yeah.
friends, and you're just tearing around town on your bikes. And all you have to worry about is being home by dinner or what, and like you've got the whole day to just explore and do whatever you want. So I did have a lot of that freedom, but I didn't have a lot of like playmates, so to speak.
Mm,
So no siblings, no gang, no neighborhood gang. Um, so I really had to be creative with how I entertained myself. So on one hand, there was a lot of TV watching and junk food. Um, but on the other side of that, there was also a lot of free form movement. I wasn't the type of kid that had um, was enrolled in tons of activities, and like every hour of my day was scheduled out. Like I had to go to school, and maybe I would be in a seasonal sport, but nothing too intense on that side of things. And and I kind of gravitated towards movement like a lot of kids, but um Also, my mom was she taught physical education. So I come from a family that values movement. So it was just always a part of my upbringing. And I found an early love for movement. Then, as I went through school, I mentioned that I've always been a good listener. I found myself gravitating towards psychology, and I've always been fascinated with uh, interpersonal relationships and even our own self relationship. So psychology really suited me, and I followed that track through college and into grad school. And there was something about the field of counseling and therapy that just made me pause and consider pivoting to a different space. And I don't know if it was because there's such a stigma on mental health. I think I was part of it. Also, there weren't a ton of the strong male role models that I needed in that counseling space. Um, so whatever it was, I got done with my graduate degree and I pivoted into the fitness industry. I thought to myself, I've always loved movement and fitness. I've gained a lot of self confidence and inner strength from fitness training. And I think I can bring a unique spin to fitness based on my background in counseling psychology. So let me try to give this a go. And that was really it. It happened on a whim. Um, it was really like kind of a series of a couple days where the idea crept into my mind. What am I going to do with my life? Maybe I'll go into fitness. Boom, boom, boom. The dominoes fell, and I found myself, um, you know, in my first job in the fitness industry, and it's just grown from there.
Mm, okay. And what specifically made you go from kind of the typical fitness where it's more physique lifting weights to the more movement, right? The animal movement approach. I'm curious to know how this movement of people, of trainers, teaching these things and doing these things even came about, right? Because when I when I think about this, is I'll just jump to that question a little bit later,
Mm,
um, or I'll leave it to there. But the first time I got exposed to this movement culture was through Ido Portal, because he trained Conor McGregor, and that got a lot of notice on YouTube and documentaries. But like, did you start developing these movements yourselves? Was it through the books you read, or was it just through play and you slowly kind of developed them over time?
it was through play, and I gravitated towards play out of a need. Um, Taking it back to where kind of the headspace I was in at the time. I was at my second job in the fitness industry. Um, I was feeling the pressure to sell, 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 and
Mm,
um, wasn't necessarily feeling supported in my professional development. Wasn't Had a lot of questions about. I'm still learning this craft. I'm still learning how to train people, and not just like young fit people, but I'm in my 20s. I'm working with people who are in their 40s, 50s, and above, who have a whole. I'm trying to understand their issues and what movements like for their bodies.
yeah.
So I had a lot of questions, and um, yeah, I really needed to. I was putting a lot of pressure on myself. I was having a lot of pressure put on me, um, to sell more and hit my numbers. So I just kind of hit a breaking point where, on a mental and emotional level, I needed something else. I needed to
Yeah.
get back to um, to joy and in enjoying my movement, and framing it as something that I was doing for myself. My workouts started to get super hardcore. It kind of gradually happened where they went from, yeah, I like to train hard, to all of a sudden, like, I'm just a nut, like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
And every workout is like going to war.
Right.
No pain, no gain, you know, just blood, sweat, and tears, gotta like go, beast mode, and like all of these cliches that we have around fitness. Yeah, I was, shredded and jacked and all of those things, but I was also like really irritable, and I was not
Mm,
happy. Um, and all of these messages my body was sending me, I'm achy, I'm just not feeling like who me. um, I was getting all these messages, and I eventually started to listen. And some of those messages were just like, bro, go out in the playground and have some fun again. Like, stop trying to craft the perfect workout, and just go do what you do, and move. And that set the tone. Once I got into that space, then, what's that old saying? When a student is ready, the teacher appears. So
mhm,
when I got to that point, and I was starting to embrace a more organic or holistic approach to training, open some things up, then I became aware of a a company or a practice called MoveNat, natural movement. And basically, this was framing movement in the context of uh, not exercise but human movement, and
yeah,
building your fitness around the the ways the human body has evolved to move. Um, so really, a simplification, getting down to what's um, a more minimalist approach to training, and one that is more rooted in context, getting out in nature or moving in the real world.
mhm,
So that's what my where I initially studied, I guess. I worked for this company for a number of years, and that's where I really dug into these concepts and started to develop my own philosophy as an offshoot of this idea of natural movement.
okay. Um, I'm gonna So one thing that stood out there was that when you shifted to having fun, when you shifted to thinking like a kid, right? Kind of tapping into that childlike potential that often we forget about when we grow up. We just become accustomed to the rules of work, society. We forget that we were designed really to have fun and enjoy this world. When you tapped into that, you started to feel better. And one thing that I teach some of my students through I have a high performance coaching program is that always like one of the keys to being more productive, to be able to getting more done is to be in the right mood. Right. Because if you're feeling, like you said, aggressive, like when you work out, when you feel down, when you feel unhappy, you're not going to be in the right mind space to do well at your job, to do well in your relationships. But when you can go out there, have fun, be in a happy mood, do something that your body was really designed to do, and even discover things that you never knew you could do. Right. When I follow your videos on YouTube, I think it's so fun to be able to learn a movement, start slow, and then be able to do it faster and transition and go into a different, flow into a different movement. And it truly is fun, and it takes that hard work mentality of working out to I'm going to exercise, I'm going to enjoy it, and I look forward to it. Whereas I'm in a different mind space or headspace when I go to the gym. Like it's like you're going for a war, you're going to lift heavy weights, and it's just not as enjoyable in my mind, at least.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that mindset shift um, is really key. And uh, from the mental side of all of this, um, I think it's important to cultivate different gears. When you need to go
Yeah.
to war, you got to have that gear, but you don't want to make war in times of peace, or you don't want to make war where there doesn't need to be a war. So,
Yeah.
and I find that because of the setup of our culture is so focused on competition, and it's just kind of embedded into the makeup of our economy, and all these systems that support our culture. Competition is at the root, and there's nothing wrong with that unless that becomes the only way to function. So, you don't want to necessarily bring that competitive go to war mindset to your relationships, for example.
Yeah.
So, um, I think it's really important to be able to cultivate a different mindset. And for me, a big part of that is when I'm going to war, it's like I got to get something done by any means necessary. And um, when it comes to training, why do we train? We train, to make incremental progress, to keep getting better. So I view part of that is um, improving your own self relationship by being able to have your body and mind in harmony, working together, collaborating. So much of something like a hard fitness effort is just, we say it's all mental. It's all, just mind over matter. You use the power of your mind to will your body to do, the next thing.
Yeah.
And this is great for performance. This is great when you're in the Super Bowl or you've got that championship on the line. Um, However, on a day-to-day basis, I think it's more important to be able to go inward and have a positive internal dialogue that is really about um, you know collaboration between your mind and body, being able to listen to what your body needs, being able to make good decisions and make decisions on behalf of your health, not your ego. And that just brings us into a state of mind that is more playful or more reflective, and a little bit more harmonious. And I think that completes this picture or rounds out this picture of holistic fitness versus just the traditional gotta grind.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Before we move on, I have to ask, in your videos, you have the circle green mat that you do your exercises on. I've always
Yeah.
wondered, where did you get that mat?
That particular mat I got when I was working for MoveNat.
Yeah.
I've since found another company that sells them. They're kind of hard to find, um,
Yeah.
but I've recently I have a site that I found and I get them from, and I also found out that there are some popping up on Amazon now, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, it's interesting how the circle mat really um, it it's a nice complement to the practice. It allows you to be a little bit more three-dimensional. It's interesting how the something as
Yeah.
simple as a mat can shape your perspective on movement.
Yeah, it's the perfect size for the movements that you do. So I'll look into that later. Um, One of the things that I like about your approach to fitness is that holistic approach. Now, I'm going into the medical field as a doctor, and I'm curious to hear from you, which aspects of the body and mind do you think this way of exercising can be useful for?
Yeah. Um, on a physical level, I I emphasize the idea that in our modern times, we simply do not get the amount of movement that we need. We do not get the amount of or the variety and the volume of movement that our bodies need to be healthy. So you go back generations, obviously people were, as a whole, more active. Um, and we're in a very unique space and time where um, so many of us we can spend the majority of our day sedentary, not moving. We can be successful in this world without moving. Um,
Hmm.
we we wouldn't have to leave the comfort of our home to be exposed to the demands of the real world, walking, lifting anything, or even be exposed to just the elements. We could just stay indoors all the time,
Yeah.
order our food. We could outsource pretty much every aspect, but we would really be cutting down our longevity and our quality of life in the long run. So on a physical level, I talk about this idea of, like, before you even approach working out, like, take care of your body through movement. I call it the daily movement practice or the daily dose. Take time to move your body in diverse ways. Simply, this simple idea that if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So
Yeah.
if you want to maintain your mobility and basic foundational strength and stability, then get on your circle mat and move around a little bit. It can be, it will get more involved and more intentional, but on a basic level, you can't go wrong with spending 15-30 minutes a day all at once or broken up by just getting on your mat and moving through some of these basic patterns that have been with us, the human animal, throughout our evolution. So there's that. Like, just move more. Very easy.
Hmm.
And from that foundation, you can earn the right to pursue higher levels of fitness. Go do whatever you want to do, whatever stokes you up. Martial arts, climbing, hiking, running, lifting, uh, whatever it is, like, pursue it, but make sure that you are putting in the time to take care of your body and make sure that it's prepared to do the types of activities or fitness things that you desire. So that's kind of the idea on a physical level. um Mentally, I think there's a lot of value in um bringing more complexity to our movements. So you go to the gym, everything is set up for exercise, and exercise is designed to be very straightforward. Um, here's the movement, here's the form. We put movement in a box for the sake of making it, for teaching it, or whatever, making it convenient and accessible. But I think mentally, there's a lot of value in um, bridging the gap between the gym and the real world. So, can
Hmm.
you take your movements out into the real world? And then all of a sudden, it's not just going through the motions of exercises like you might at the gym, hop on an elliptical or a treadmill and put your headphones on or turn the TV on and just start, plugging away until the timer counts down to zero, right? Um, when you go out into nature, when you go out in and you move in the natural environment, all of a sudden, all of your senses are involved. Your mind and your body need to be on the same page, on the same team, so you can make decisions effectively and concisely, to ensure your safety and your performance. So, on a mental level, we want to bring a higher level of engagement to our fitness, because if you're just putting your body through the motions and there's a mental disconnect, if mentally you're
Yeah.
off thinking about what you're, you know anything else, if you're not present, your results are going to be limited and you may be setting yourself up for injury. So, and you're also capping, how much your fitness is actually going to translate to real world capability and functioning.
Yeah.
Then on the third level, I talk about physical, mental, and then emotional. And the emotional piece is the piece that rarely gets any attention. We don't want to talk about emotions. Are Emotions don't make money. Emotions are inconvenient to our productivity in this world. But hey, we're human and
Yeah.
we're emotional creatures. So I think on an emotional level, again, it's not just grinding to you see the number on the scale that society says is the right number on the scale, or that your body is the type of body that society deems is the right kind of body.
Yeah.
You train in a way that supports positive mental and emotional health. So basically, that's where this idea of play comes in, and finding some joy, some intrinsic joy in what you do, not just um, not just working out and feeling the good vibes that you feel from,
Mhm.
you
The
did your
pump.
workout and you can check that off the to-do list, but you deeply, deeply enjoy the act of moving, whatever the activity is. I don't, if it's dancing, martial arts, golf, like whatever, it doesn't matter. Everyone's different, but can you can you find a way to connect to those layers of joy? So, without going on too long about that, that would, to me, encapsulate this idea of holistic fitness, making sure that those physical pieces are in place, um, mental engagement, and emotional well-being and security via joy and play.
Hey, Thiago here. Do you ever feel like there are just not enough hours in the day? For the past 4 months, I've been creating and running an online coaching program. The Unstoppable Performance Training Program is a program that I developed that helps students develop their high performance skills so they can save 10 plus hours a week, so they have more time to spend on their hobbies and relationships. This program teaches you the proper systems and strategies that you need to get more done in less time while overcoming procrastination, anxiety, burnout, and will help you experience life more deeply. If you feel like you are currently not tapping into the potential that you have, if you feel like you're stuck and have more in you to give, then book a free strategy session with me today. Just go to www.thiagolusvarghi.com/strategy. Now back to the show. Yeah, that's wonderful. That's a great breakdown. And do you recently on your Instagram, you asked people for testimonials? Are there testimonials from people that you've talked to, engaged with, that maybe had like this chronic pain, and then after doing movements for so and so days or months, it went away? Like, are there, because I would be interested in like, one day when I'm a doctor, somebody comes in like, hey doc, I have this chronic back pain, or I hurt my knee, I hurt something, and I could turn to research or some case studies where this person did this set of mobility movements, right, for 2-3 weeks or more, and they were able to significantly minimize the pain that they were experiencing. Do you have any of testimonials on the top of your mind?
Absolutely. And it's interesting to me because movement is such a, it's such a part of me. It's so central to my everyday existence. And what I share, I just put it out there, and I leave it up to the viewer to make the changes, or to spin it in a way that's personally relevant. So I always love to hear from my audience, and it's like, what are you getting out of this? What are you doing with this information? And generally, on the physical side of things, I hear a lot of resolution of chronic aches and pains.
Mm.
So that's beautiful. I love that. And I'm working in a space where, like, we're going to go through a very general movement practice to address the low hanging fruit. So I, unless I'm working with someone individually, I'm generally promoting a very broad approach. So it's
Yeah.
not like, if you've got this specific issue, I know exactly what's going on in your body. Like, if you've got this pain, do this movement because that's the answer. I don't know that. And I have a problem when people on the internet say that they know what is going on in the body of someone that they've never met. So I I don't I this is just a way of saying that what I do isn't prescriptive, but I
Yeah.
have had so many um, success stories and so much good feedback coming from people who say going through these generalist movement practices has addressed some of my chronic aches and pains, I feel more energy, I feel younger, and I feel, more confident to go out in the world to move. So a lot of the feedback I get is the resolution of those chronic aches and pains. Other than that, I'll also hear from people on the mental side of things. They love learning new skills that are actually applicable to moving in the real world. And along with that comes greater confidence. So they learn new skills and they've got that higher degree of mental engagement, and all of a sudden they
Hmm.
are feeling more confident to move in the world and they move more. Um, and then on the emotional side of things, people are like, wow, like you're really encouraging me to play and to find my own path and to listen to my body. And wow, that's such a gift. Because, in this world of exercise, we're always kind of being prompted to compare ourselves to societal standards or other people. Um, and a lot of people find that they just appreciate having the space to connect with their own body and find a joy in movement again. So those are the three big pieces, they're big categories of feedback that I get from
Yeah.
people stepping into my weird world of movement.
Yeah, that's great. That reminded me of your video intros. Welcome back, weirdos.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the people get resolution, increased confidence, and more in touch with their emotions, and that's something that we all need. Um, Now, I forgot to ask this a little bit earlier on, but if you could give an elevator pitch to someone of what you do, what would you say?
Mm. I've had so many different, tailored my messaging so many different ways
Yeah,
over the years, because that's the challenge. That really is, because,
true.
this isn't yoga. This isn't a set discipline that has mainstream awareness. Um, and so, I settled on this idea of primal movements, and then I get lumped in with animal flow and I get lumped in with all these other things, which is
Right.
fine. Um, anybody out there who's pitching movement, it's cool with me. But anytime we try to label something, then it gets isolated in a box. So that is a challenge. So when I am pitching this, it depends on the audience, but I'm generally talking about fitness for your body and mind. Um, and depending on who I'm talking to, I might also highlight the idea of, ditching exercise and start moving your body and start leveraging the power of play to
Hmm.
um, to produce positive change in your life. But because I'm in the fitness space primarily, I generally pitch this as
Hmm.
fitness for your body and mind.
Okay, great. Um, how would you categorize the different stages of training that you teach? For example, if you're going to explain this way of training from a bird's eye view, which you kind of did just now, what would you say? Because I know there's different levels, right? Like in your videos on your YouTube channel, there's mobility and stretching. There's your
Mhm.
daily dose. There's strength and conditioning. Could you kind of maybe give for the people who have no clue what we're talking about still, because movement is pretty still new. Um, could you kind of walk us through the different levels?
Absolutely, yeah. And I have a lot of fun, putting this together. So figuring it out, like, where are people in their understanding and in their ability, and giving them different points of entry into this world. So at the very beginning, um, if you can buy into this idea of movement over exercise, I've kind of got my foot in the door. Then we're going to start with what I just call the foundations. And really, that is just you on the floor, on your mat, or wherever you're comfortable, going through some of these basic primal movements, we'll call them, or natural movements. And what that is, basically, can you generate some basic mobility by sitting on the ground, getting up and down from the ground, starting to play around with some crawling variations. And these movements are gentle on the body, but they're also very illuminating in terms of our mobility and our strength. So that's where I start with just really basic movement sequences that occur on the ground. And I have a lot of content on my YouTube channel around that. And we start to build intensity and complexity from those foundations. So once you get the basic movements down, then we start putting them together into little flows or little interval workouts to get some of the metabolic conditioning, some of those familiar feelings of working out.
Hmm.
And then from there, we can start branching out into what people are going to recognize um, more from the world of functional fitness, I guess. Some basic lifting, um, basic patterns like squatting and lunging and pressing and pulling. I try to build my strength training and keep my strength training protocols as simple as possible based around general human movement patterns. And um, once you've got that the base foundations of strength, then things really start to open up, and then you can um, explore your world. You can get out in nature and start moving. You can start confidently exploring whatever physical disciplines are most compelling to you as an individual. Whatever floats your boat,
Hmm.
you're going to be physically prepared for it. But everything starts on the ground, building, reclaiming basic mobility, stability, and strength. And then from there, it starts to get geared towards a movement focused approach to fitness, um, familiar exercises and movement patterns, but we just take a more organic or natural spin to that. And then from there, it's about individual specialization. Um,
Hmm.
adding new tools to your toolbox so you can be out in the world enjoying life, enjoying an active physical existence.
Great. Yeah, thanks for such a great explanation. I think for people who who are listening who still are curious about this, definitely go check out Kellen's YouTube channel because it's so much easier to understand these things when you can visualize it. You can see it happening in front of you. The next question is more personalized towards my lifestyle, but I think everyone would benefit. So, starting in on September 1st, I'm going to be working in the hospital in clinics as part of my medical studies, and I'm going to have significantly less time than usual to work out. So I was wondering which type of training and for how long would you recommend for me to strengthen and maintain my postural muscles and mobility. This is kind of like, and I know you have YouTube videos on this, but maybe just more specific or uh, I know it's going to be a very generalized approach, right? Because everybody needs these muscles to be functioning. Everybody has the same needs for movement on a day to day basis.
Yes. So as at a bare minimum, and the audience that I'm really targeting, people with busy lives. We're all busy. And we're all juggling these different roles in our lives. We don't always have um, all this time to dedicate towards training. So, at a minimum,
Yeah.
my recommendation is 2 15-minute movement sessions per day. Once in the morning to get you going, and once in the evening to start to downshift. And anything that you can add on to that is just bonus. That's icing on the
Hmm.
cake. But if you can commit to 2 15-minute blocks of intentional movement practice, then it's my experience that that's going to become a habit, and it's going to overflow into the rest of your life. And
Yeah.
how you choose to find little pockets of time throughout your day to express movement. Um, and and that's really the thing for me. I'm trying to get people out of this mindset that you need to train for 60 minutes 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And not that that's bad, but if life gets busy, and it will, and you aren't able to hit that standard, then from a psychological perspective, then there's the experience of failure. And
Yeah.
then and when we fail, we start to, get down on ourselves. We go, what's the use? We go into a downward spiral. And then, we're not moving, so then the floodgates open. We start eating junk food. It opens the door for other bad habits. But if you can just
Mhm.
start with committing to that one positive habit of 2 15-minute movement practices, which aren't super rigorous. They don't have to be rigorous, but just spending some time working on your issues. In your case, you're talking about posture. So just some real basic postural work that becomes a habit. And I know that's going to increase the likelihood that you make better choices around how you're fueling yourself and hydrating, how you are moving in the rest of your day, how you're relating to people in your life, and it's going to create a positive synergy. So at a very a very basic level, I would say those 2 15-minute movement sessions are the place to start.
Wonderful. So 2 15-minute sessions. And I found that, when I first discovered you, I started implementing like your daily doses in the morning. I would wake up, first thing I do is just a quick routine just to get the body moving, rocking back
Mhm.
and forth on my back, which is so nice. I can like feel my my spine going like working properly, and it's fun. And I found that my mornings were so much better when I got some movement early on. And I had fun. I did kind of your shoulder exercises, which really loosened up my shoulders, right? And I have tighter uh, thoracic spine uh, cage because of the sitting down all day studying, looking at the computer, and I found that super beneficial. And I agree with you in terms of if we can't live up to that standard of 60 minutes 3 times a week, then our identity is, oh, I don't work out because I don't hit those metrics, right? But if we kind of throw those metrics out the window and just do like 15 minutes a day, 50, or 30 minutes a day total of just a little bit of movement, getting the blood flowing, learning or mastering a new move every day or every week, then it becomes different. Like it's like, yeah, I do exercise. I am fit or working towards being fit. And I find that identity piece, that mindset piece is so important to keep you going long term.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it all begins with the mindset. And that's why this is a hard concept to explain, because we can only understand concepts through the lens of our past experience.
Mm.
We're always comparing new things to old things, right? To make sense of them. So that is, when you said like you got to it's hard to explain, you got to just experience it for yourself. That is the point of entry. And like I said, it's really just for me trying to get my foot in that door, gets find some way to find some resonance with the audience about why this is a a, a, a worthwhile approach. And what I'm trying to do is lower the barriers to entry. So when I say a 15-minute practice, what I mean is, queuing up the timer on your phone for 15 minutes, pressing start, and whatever you get done in that time is all good. So it's not like let's redefine what success is. Success
Mm.
is, and how can we make it as simple as possible to be successful? Well, you made a commitment to step onto your mat and you set your timer, and you were there for 15 minutes. Great. And I know if there's a good chance that if you're there for 15 minutes, that you're going to be there for, you know, maybe 20 to 30 minutes, because it just feels so good. But
Hmm.
this is all about, I used to be very anti metrics because I think there was a time, when I mentioned that phase that I was in where my workouts were all about going to
Yeah.
war. The metrics were just like dumping gasoline on that fire. It was just like, well, my running pace, like I've got to top it. I've got a PR. I've got to lift more weight. Like those numbers weren't serving me,
Yeah.
my mental and emotional health at that time. So since then, I've made my way back to a better balance where I don't think metrics are wrong, and everyone's a little bit different as well. I'm definitely not that like type A super hyper analytical person that needs to track everything. Um, I'm a little bit more like blowing in the wind, free flow guy. But we're all wired a little bit differently. You have to find the strategies that work for you. But um, I think the idea is to not get too wrapped up in those metrics and start leaning on good habits to create positive change, positive synergy in your life.
Mm. I listened to a podcast that you've been on recently, and you mentioned that as a kid, you didn't have the best diet, and that was kind of uh, a motivator for you to go into fitness, right? I think in grade
Mhm.
9, I think you started working out more intensely. I'm interested because I love hearing kind of what people eat and nutrition. What does your diet look like now?
My diet now is very balanced. There's no, I don't do like, I wouldn't call myself paleo or keto,
Okay.
or I don't, I put in my years of time running my experiments around the the ways of eating and fueling my body that work for me. So I'm not real dogmatic about like I don't eat grains. I don't touch
Yeah.
gluten. I try to keep things simple for myself. Um, and I'm seeking that balance. But the thing that really defines my approach to eating is intentionality. And I love to cook. I'll put that work in. So um, minimizing uh, processed packaged foods,
Hmm.
um, cooking, say 90% of my meals
Yeah.
on any given week, and I'm yeah, sticking to whole foods, eating as clean as possible. I don't get too wrapped up with tracking macronutrients, things like that. I definitely prioritize protein and produce, but I don't want to vilify carbohydrates or fats, or
Right.
nutrition is so specific to us as individuals. I really think it's good to have a very simple framework. And I'm a big believer in you've got to put in the time to figure out what works best for your body. And if that means like doing 6 months of keto, or doing a carnivore diet, or trying a vegan diet, and seeing what your body has to say about that. The trick is to prioritize what your body and your performance is telling you over what the experts and gurus are telling you.
Yeah.
Use that information to inform your intuition. Um, and again, we live in a world where everyone just loves to have everything lined out into an exact protocol. And I get that. It's just not how I operate. I'm everything that I do in the movement space and I've done with nutrition is about me getting closer and to honing and informing my own intuition. And that only comes through a lot of trial and error, a lot of experimentation, and these cycles of, try something and then take a step back, review it, process it, break it down, see how it's working, and make changes. It's a slow approach, but it's
Yeah.
it's how we dial things in over the course of time. And the idea, I guess, is that you get to the point when, because I guess when I think about this, who wants to be tracking everything down to the calorie, down to the gram, when
Nobody.
you're like, how long do you want to be doing that? How do you want to be
Yeah.
doing that in your 50s and 60s and 70s? My models, the people that I admire, like the people who are successful into old age, whether we're talking about individuals or we're talking about like, kind of regional cultures, um, these are people that do all the right things and have everything dialed in, very intuitively. So I'm looking at like, how do we get to that point? So
Right.
you're not expending so much mental energy and emotional energy on making all those decisions, but you do have some room to you've got some wiggle room there. You're doing
Mhm.
well, you're doing eating clean and doing the right things most of the time. Um, but when it comes to food, I say that there's food. Most of the time, food is fuel, but there is a percentage of time where food is an experience. It's not about how many grams of sugar are in that thing. It's about
Yeah.
how much am I enjoying that thing, or who am I enjoying it with, or what's the special occasion. These things matter. Context matters. So I don't think that anything can be just, put into a vacuum. Everything is interacting with everything else. So that's where we've got to be intentional, and we've got to learn from our mistakes and dial this all in over time.
Yeah, I like that approach. I think a lot more people should be kind of taking control into their own hands and customizing their diet, changing it, figuring out like how foods affect them. Like I tried the carnivore diet and I felt just consistent energy throughout the day and it felt great for a period of time. So I like that, but it might not work for somebody else, right? And it's not something I would do long term, maybe for like a season, because I do like variety of foods. And I also like that you threw in the context where it's like if you're just gonna go out and have fellowship with friends and celebrate a birthday, celebrate success, like do that, right? You're not gonna die by eating a little bit of excess sugar. I think it's important to be connected because in that moment, although the food might not be the healthiest for your body, you're going to be connected with your friends on an emotional, a spiritual level, and it's going to be fulfilling a different aspect of your life, and it's still, yeah, it leads to that fulfillment aspect of enjoying food with other people, which is so important
Yeah.
and part of our culture ever since the beginning of time.
You might be on a path, or you might be preparing for an event or something like that, that you've got to be strict. And I get that. But I'm talking about all the other times, and I know from firsthand experience that how isolating and it can be, how alienating it can be to be the
Hmm.
guy that's just like, no, I can't eat that, or no, I'm I can't go out, or I can't do this, or like I said, there's a time and a place. It might be a season where you are really focused on a competition or whatever, but how can you, once that season has passed, how can you come back to balance? And I think it's really underrated how much of a toll that very overly strict, rigid mentality can take, how much of a toll that can take on our relationships. No
Yeah.
one wants to be around that person. And you, in doing that, you're wearing a sort of armor. You're keeping people at a distance. Um, and maybe it's for a reason. Maybe it's for a reason. I'll just leave it there. But I think
Okay.
part of this is to be able to open yourself up to life, and its many imperfections. That's life.
Hmm. I love how reflective you are, how much of a thinker you are. Definitely see the listening and the psychology aspect coming out as you kind of think everything at a deeper level, and you can communicate your thoughts so well. I'm always interested to hear people's morning routines. What does your morning routine look like?
Mm. It like my routine. Um, it changes with the seasons. Right now, so summer months, I'll be honest with you. Right now, my morning routine is like get up and get to work. Like I'm going to
Okay.
be real. Like I have
Yeah.
been all summer. I've been pretty terrible about it. Um, I'm working on a project. I've got things going. Like I'm I'm getting up and I'm getting after it. There have been some mornings in the past few weeks where I'm realizing, okay, it's August, summer's dwindling, and I need like this rise and grind routine.
Hmm.
It's somewhat necessary, but it's also starting to take its toll. So a more adaptive routine for me in the morning is to start the day off with um, to get outside and to get some movement in. So
Hmm.
there are a few new practices that I've been playing around with, or a few new tools that I've been playing around with. Um, but first thing in the morning, I might do some light kettlebell work or some light uh, mace work or rope flow. I've been starting my day off with just a little bit of flow practice. Whatever, there's different ways I do that, but just some movements and something that aligns my mind and body, kind of pulls me into the present moment. So
Yeah.
my mind doesn't rush off to business, um,
Right.
but I can enjoy, you know, 15 to 30 minutes in the morning of just being in my body and um, and building some energy to set me up for the productivity that I want to do get going for the rest of the day. So for me, it's a little bit of movement. Then I'll get some coffee in my life, and uh, going back to eating strategies, I've been a morning faster for 10 to 12 years now at this point. So I'm generally not eating right away in the morning.
Wow.
Earliest I might start eating is like 10 a.m. Latest would be like 1 or 2 p.m. So yeah, a little bit of movement, some water, some coffee, and then I'm gonna see that gets me in the space to do what I want to do with the day, which is generally like find some way to share my stuff in a creative way. So
Okay.
that movement gets me into that creative space.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think definitely are seasons to kind of rise and grind, and then other ones where you kind of ease into it and you have to center yourself first and then grind. I think it's good to change it up too, because I think if it's too repetitive, too routine like, then it becomes a box that you box yourself into, and then it's not
It's gonna be
enjoyable.
and it's different. I mean, we've got four distinct seasons here. Like when there's snow on the ground and I wake up, it's 20, 30 degrees. Like it's different.
Yeah.
It puts me in a different state. Um,
Yeah.
the nature of my day is different. So
Yeah.
there's always adjustments to be made. There's never just one static routine. At least for me, there's never just one static routine.
Okay. What's your favorite quote if you have one?
Yeah, I have a few, but the one that's sticking out to me today in this conversation, um, and it's from Miles Davis. Um, and the quote is, "Sometimes you have to play a long time to be able to play like yourself."
Mm,
And to me, uh, this really embodies the idea of individualization. This idea that there's so much information floating around out there, the right ways to do things, the wrong way to do things, whatever. It all comes down to finding out our own authentic style, our own unique practice. And when I say practice, I don't just mean movement. I
yeah.
mean, our whole practice of life. So um, it takes time. It takes a lot of experimentation, takes a lot of you try a lot of different things, and eventually every experiment you run brings you a little bit closer to yourself, brings you a little bit closer to your own uniqueness, your own authenticity. And I think it's an important message to remember that this takes an incredible amount of time. We can do things faster and we can replicate other people and we can pay people to give us the formulas. Um, but at the end of the day, if anything is going to be sustainable, it's got to have our own unique spin on it. And we can leverage other people's blueprints uh, to build our own. But at the end of the day, you got to put in the work, and you got
Yeah.
to just spend time in the process playing around. And you got to understand that you're going to make hundreds, thousands of mistakes and be okay with that. That's just all part of it. It's all part of the journey.
Yeah, and since you mentioned, we'll make a lot of mistakes, what's your approach to dealing with or overcoming failure?
Rest. Get a good night's rest. Go to sleep. Um, I, I've encountered so much failure. Um, I, everybody has, and um, for me, the failure compounds, and it only gets worse when I resist it. When I I keep trying to plow through those sticking points when I'm fatigued. So we're all going to come up against failure, but framing it as a temporary situation, stepping away from that thing to take care of yourself. Again, another topic that we don't talk enough about because we're so hyper focused on productivity at all costs. But in order to produce your best work, you've got to take care of yourself. And that's what this is all
Yeah.
about. So I when I'm feeling like a failure or I'm encountering failure, one of the hardest things to do is to just say, I'm going to hang it up for the day. I'm going to go love on myself. I'm going to go like do whatever I need to do to take care of myself. I'm going to go get a good night's rest, and I'm going to come back at this thing with fresh energy. And the beauty of it is in that space. If we just are talking about movement, a lot of times that failure is it's in failing that you go and you go to sleep. Your body's processing what you did, and you are going to come back to that skill or that movement or whatever, and it's going to be there. Your body
Yeah.
will have figured it out. um, or you're working on a project. You're um, coming up against a problem, and you're not seeing the solution. You step away from it. You take a vacation for a few days, and you come back, and the answer is there, like it's waiting for you. You just need rest. Just we deserve rest. I think that's the message that we need, because rest is the key to turning failure into success.
Yeah. Take rest. Now, the title of the podcast is called Born Unstoppable. What are three traits of someone who is unstoppable
Hmm.
in your eyes?
Someone who is empathetic, someone who's able to step outside of their own experiences, step out of their own shoes and into someone else's. Um, Someone who is authentically themselves, and someone who really knows themselves, who's taken the time to look inward and figure out what makes them different in the world and embrace that those things. Those are gifts.
Hmm.
And then lastly, being adaptive, being able to um, be the version of yourself that fits the situation.
Yeah.
And you can't do that without the the former. You can't do it without that self-reflection. We all have these different, we're all complex. We all have so many different facets, but you got to know the right version of you for the situation.
Mm.
So, um, empathy, authenticity, and adaptability make you unstoppable.
Great, amazing. I can guarantee you that I nobody's ever said those before, and I think those are super true. I mean, the way you explained it, it's if you truly know yourself and you're adaptable and you can, you're empathetic with people with the situation, then whatever life throws at you, you can go with the flow. You can
Hmm.
adjust. You can speed up the tempo, slow it down. You can pause
Hmm.
and have a heart to heart conversation, or you can speed it up and kill it in your business. So
Yes,
thanks for sharing that.
yes, yes, all those things.
What would you tell your 20-year-old self?
Stop trying to be like everyone else. Um, Definitely. Um, I'm um, I'm biracial. I grew up, so I'm half black, half white, um, and that as a kid, that is as a kid that made me kind of a chameleon. Like
Mm,
I didn't, wasn't quite sure how to be, um, and I was always like looking around, trying to be like other people to fit in, like
yeah,
like and and there was some benefit to that. It was those skills enabled my survival in that time, but
yeah,
at a certain point it started to hinder me because I wasn't able to really embrace what makes me unique.
yeah,
um, so there was a lot of turmoil, a lot of inner conflict, because like I'm the way that I'm expressing myself isn't the way that I experience myself internally. There
right,
was there was that mismatch between what I feel and what I'm showing the world. So
mm,
if I could give myself any advice, it would be to, it's scary, but to embrace the ways that the things that make me different, and just keep leaning into that, keep looking at that, keep putting that out into the world. um,
yeah.
because it's just it's so important on so many levels. It's important for ourselves, it's important for other people as well.
Yeah, great. That's great advice, and I can relate with that. And maybe even to kind of add on to that is like learning to communicate like what you're going through, right? I think you have such a
Mm.
great gift of communication and just explaining your thought process and why you do what you do. And I feel like if you're somebody who is trying to be like everybody else, you feel like the chameleon, having the vocabulary to express that to a family or friends can go a long way, because I can relate with you on a different level, but like the same level of trying to fit in, being a Brazilian in Canada, and then being more of a Canadian in Brazil. When I go visit my friends in
Mm.
Brazil, it's like I'm always the outsider. Being somebody of a faith background as a Christian, I have a lot of friends who uh, disagree or don't believe the same thing. Being even in the medical system, having more of a functional mindset, right? Like I'm learning more about functional medicine. So there's like everybody kind of goes through these aspects in their life where they want to fit in, but it's also okay to not fit in. It's okay to find your own voice, develop that, and talk to mentors or people that can guide you along that journey.
Absolutely, absolutely, you'll fit in somewhere, it just might
Oh
not
yeah.
be at that one space. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. And as I'm the type of person that I uh I spend a lot of time alone where I've spent time thinking about these things and cultivating these ideas. But um, not being I keep a close circle, but not being afraid to lean on the people that are there for you, that are the
Mm,
people that are your people, your inner circle of people. I think it's important to lean on them, to communicate with them, and to, even if they're very different, but you trust them, show them who you are, because it's practice for that authenticity that I was talking about. Not everyone in the world is going to accept you or embrace you, and
yeah.
that's fine. But we can practice that authenticity, and really um leverage the strength of our closest relationships. That would be another piece of advice I would give myself. Like, let people help you.
Yeah.
Let people in. So easier said than done.
Yeah, totally. You have le- I'm gonna try and say this. Let me know if I miss something or mess up. But you have a coaching business. You have your YouTube channel. You have an app where people can follow along in these exercises. What's your vision for the future of everything that you're trying to do, and maybe explain to people what the app is about, kind of like, use this moment to kind of plug anything that you do so people are more aware of where they can find you and what you do.
Yeah. Okay. Let me start with what's going on currently. So, yes, I have a YouTube channel. I can be found at Movement Parallels Life, and tons of free content there on YouTube, playlists and things like that to start to organize some of the classes. And for people who maybe just on a physical level just want to uh, open things up and learn some new movements and a different approach, I use a platform called Playbook to host programs and classes. So it's a really cool app you download on your phone, and you can get access to all my stuff, all different kinds of programs, and there's a ton of other creators on that site as well. So that's great for the person who just wants to, maybe is starting to want to branch out and open some things up in their movement practice. And uh, maybe we can put that down in the a link to that down into
Oh,
the show notes. That's a
for sure.
very low investment way to just get a little bit deeper on this movement goodness.
Yeah.
um, but as far as what I'm building, um, because to me it's about so much more than the movement. And I've been taking my sweet time figuring out, like, what do I want to turn this into. But um, right now I am getting to ready to launch a new community. So I'm going to have my membership community where I put out all my content, everything from the foundations to the strength and conditioning to the specialty stuff. But I realized that because these communities, these movement communities are just starting to pop up and grow, that movement
Yeah.
isn't this mainstream thing yet, that people can really benefit from more guidance. Um, and and people want to connect with other movement weirdos, so to speak, or other people who are into an alternative approach to movement, fitness, and health. So I'm building a community, um, and I'm really looking forward to being able to offer as much as I possibly can in terms of programming, coaching calls, and community support to bring people together. And my vision is really to help um, just the average person out there who is maybe 35 plus, who has a career, who has a family, who is just maybe is at this juncture in their life where they start to feel life getting away from them.
Mm.
They've got so many responsibilities and they start to feel like their health is going, they've got aches and pains, their bodies are changing. I want to I want to connect with those people and I want to let them know that aging doesn't mean that you just fall off a cliff, that you can
Yeah.
age gracefully, that you can stay fit and moving well, and you can enjoy your life in balance. That's my vision, to bring together that community, to be a voice for the millions of people out there who, maybe you're not a hardcore fitness person, or maybe you don't want to run marathons, or you don't want to, go to the CrossFit games or
Yeah.
whatever. You just want to move, have fun, be healthy, and live a life in balance. Fitness for your body and mind. Movement Parallels Life might be for you.
Yeah, that's where it's at. That's great. And I will definitely link the app in the description, and I will link you have um a free series of trainings. I think I subscribed to your email when you first launched it a couple months ago, maybe. I'll link whatever I have that people can use as a just to get warmed up into this space, and I'll put it in the description so it's easy for them to just click and go.
I I have a fresh new uh, free guide called the Holistic Fitness Blueprints that we can link to, and people can get that. I've just put together kind of like the first steps into
Okay.
this approach. So people will learn 5 foundational primal movements, will learn a daily movement routine that they can do to promote mobility and energy, and I'll talk about some of the most important lifestyle habits to cultivate alongside movement to start seeing positive changes. And it's from there, like I said, once you can get those habits dialed in, then you set yourself up for making positive changes, for to keep growing and um making those changes for decades to come. It doesn't
Great.
We don't just stop growing after a certain age.
Yeah.
But you're able to find that flow and keep growing as a human being in different ways.
Mm. Now, is there a question that I didn't ask that you wished I did ask?
No. um,
Okay.
it's been a great conversation. I appreciate you giving me some heads up on some of the questions, and just the whole outline. It's been great. I appreciate that you took the time to get to know my work and even listen to other interviews that I've done. Like that speaks volumes about
Mm.
you as a podcast host. So I thank you for that. The fact that you did that research and that you're familiar with what I do, I think has allowed this to be a conversation that can be really open up a lot of possibilities for the audience. So thank
Mm.
you for that.
Appreciate it. I believe you have a message that is very, very worth sharing. Now, I do have one last kind of thoughtful question. If you could write one message on a billboard, what would that message say?
Mm. Take amazing care of yourself. You deserve it. That would be it.
I like it. I like it.
That would be it. I
Um,
think we all need that reminder. I think it's simple, but it's easy to slip. It gets away from all of us.
yeah.
So if you're listening to this, take amazing care of yourself because you deserve it.
Mm. Great. Well, Kellen, if people are jiving with what you're saying, they want to learn more about you, they you mentioned your YouTube channel, but what's your Instagram handle in case they're more of an Instagram person?
On YouTube, Movement Parallels Life. On Instagram, Movement Parallels Life.
Oh, there
And
you
my
go.
website where you can find my new community that I'll be launching in just a few weeks, movementparallelslife.com. It's
Wonderful.
where I'm at. If you're on the gram, reach out. I'm very accessible. I love these conversations. I mean, that's how we connected. So
He responds.
yeah, yeah.
Kellen responds immediately. Now, if you guys are listening to this, please share this podcast or a clip of it on Instagram, tag Kellen and tag myself. It's a great way to get the word out, get people to listening to these messages. And also, if you decide to do a little movement flow, record yourself, share it on Instagram story and tag us both. I think it'd be really cool to see what kind of fruits come out of this podcast episode and see how it makes waves throughout people's lives. Kellen, thank you so much for joining and answering all my questions and just sharing your thoughts and how you've developed all these things over the past many years. And I look forward to continue learning from you as I watch YouTube and follow you on Instagram. And thank you again, man. I hope you have a wonderful day.
It's been a great conversation. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode. Listen, God created you to be creative, and He gave you a unique potential. But oftentimes, we don't know how to tap into that. Some of us need more guidance than others. I know that because that was me. If you want to develop high-performance strategies and become unstoppable, then I'd love to hop on a call with you today and see how we could work together. So go ahead and book a free strategy call with me at www.thiagolusvarghi.com/strategy. I'll see you soon.